Good hood morning, good hood evening, good hood afternoon, whenever or wherever you happen to be listening. This is your girl, Aziza Binti, live and in full effect. You know how we do it, we get right into it. We're going to talk about healing today. It is a buzz topic. Folks are healing from all kinds of things. And, what I've been seeing sometimes, and this may have happened with you too, is that it's a very linear process. You recognize you've been being treated wrong, or you recognize that this thing isn't okay, and then you begin your healing journey. And shortly thereafter, you arrive at a point of total healing and everything is great. Well, I have to tell you that it doesn't work out that way. I also have to tell you that it's not the other way either, which is the other end of the spectrum, and that it is incredibly painful. There are, long stretches of time where you are just miserable trying to heal from any manner of, past trauma and experiences. It isn't that way all the time either. It is a place that exists in between. And in our world, things are just polar opposites a lot of the time. There is no middle ground. And the reality is that life flourishes most in the middle. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. If you are just beginning a healing journey, or you think you are just beginning a healing journey, so that's the interesting thing. Sometimes people have been on their healing path and they don't necessarily realize it, right? And so now they're like, I'm just beginning my healing journey. So I ask you to consider whether you are really just beginning your healing journey, or if all of the things that have happened in your life since those painful things happened, if they are part of your healing journey. That's something for you to consider. I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, but I am saying that it's something worth considering. It's something worth, being willing to wrap your mind around and ask yourself about, or journal about, or talk with your therapist about, or a very close, trusted friend. Okay? So, what's the point of all this? What difference does it make whether it's one end of the spectrum of healing or the other? Well, the difference is in how you experience it. Because here's the thing, anything can be experienced with a lot of pain, and some things can be experienced with a lot of pleasure. Generally speaking, you're somewhere in the middle, right? And so it's important to know that if you are navigating your healing journey right now and you are feeling like, man, this is just incredibly overwhelming. This is a lot, and I'm just going to have to accept the fact that it's going to be painful. I want you to know that there are going to be some painful parts. Absolutely. But there can also be parts where you are beginning to feel free. You are beginning to feel as if your life is starting to emerge in ways that you never imagined before. And it's super important for you to understand that piece. It's important for you to understand that although there are some painful parts, I want you to embrace the parts that are not painful. Sometimes we just simply overlook them because things are so challenging for us that it's like, you know what, I might as well just accept the fact that this is going to hurt and this is going to be awful for me. And it's not that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay? Everybody's healing journey is their own. And what people choose to share with you about their healing journey, that is their own as well. You have to know that if you are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever, listening to podcasts, reading articles, you have to know that people are self-narrating. They are deciding what part of their journey they're going to share, what part they're not, right? And sometimes, most times it's conscious, but many times it is not conscious. Right? They're not aware that they might be leaving some things out. They may just not even remember what it was, or it may be so painful they're not willing to disclose that. Or it may be something that makes it seem as if healing is fun and that there are no challenging parts. And so they might leave that out because they don't want people to think that it's all fun and games or that they had it easy. You have no idea what parts somebody might leave out. You have no idea what parts you might leave out when you begin to share your journey as well. Okay? And so I want you to know that what you see, what you hear is not necessarily the full story. Okay? Your journey is your own. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It doesn't have to sound like anyone else's or feel like anyone else's. It is yours. And if you are having a really tough time right now and you're not allowing yourself to enjoy any part of your journey, I encourage you to think about the ways in which you could enjoy this journey. You know, something I've been navigating for some time and with much greater intention right now in my life is codependency. And so I really had in my mind that this journey was just going to be hella hard. It was just one of these things I'm just going to have to accept. And, that's it. And I'm not going to lie, it is hella hard, right? Because as you're navigating codependency, you start to recognize your own stuff and how you need to change, and that it's not about everybody else and what everybody did to you. And that although you can accept that the things that have happened have been painful, you also have to accept your responsibility in them, and not that you are responsible for what somebody said or did, and not that you are at fault, but you have to take responsibility for the way that you've chosen to show up as a result of that. And you also have to take responsibility for the fact that you didn't know any better. That's a weird one. It's like, how do I take responsibility for not knowing? Well, the way you take responsibility for not knowing is accepting that you were in a particular place for whatever reason, and then deciding to forgive yourself. That forgiveness piece is major because you can't help what you've already done. You can't take that back. No matter how bad you feel about it, it isn't going to make it any better. In fact, it's more likely that you're going to repeat those same behaviors if you continue to beat yourself up about it. And I don't care how bad it was. And I know, being a codependent myself, I've got a few things on the list. And I have to forgive myself for that. Not even have to. I get to forgive myself for that. Because I'm of no use to myself. I'm of no use to anybody else. Continuing to beat myself up about something that I said or that I did. I can apologize. I can do everything I can to make that right. And then I have to let it go. And I get to choose new behaviors. And the way I choose new behaviors is to choose new thinking, healthy thinking, thinking that is rooted in truth, light, and love, and not reaction, fear, anger, worry. I get to choose that. And so I want to encourage you as you are on your journey to remember that it is not going to be just a horrible, horrible experience until you arrive healed. That is not one. If that's how you see it, I promise you are going to get off of this quote unquote healing journey after not a very long amount of time. You're going to be like, yeah, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. Because that wasn't as painful as this. And so it's important that you understand that you get to invite joy into this healing journey. It may not just automatically show up for you. You may have to choose it. And see, here's the thing, especially with codependency, and this can be said of other things as well. You're not used to centering yourself. You're used to externalizing things, looking at other people's behaviors, what other people are saying or doing or not saying or doing, or what you think they're saying or doing. Man, it's even exhausting to say it. But you're used to that. You're not used to thinking, how do I want to spend this day for myself? How do I want to show up for me today? How do I want to encourage myself today? What do I want to do today that makes me feel good? Not because I'm doing something for someone else, but how can I make me feel good for me? If you're not used to centering yourself in that way, it can seem like a pretty heavy lift. I know sometimes I've asked myself that question and I end up doing something for somebody else. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is supposed to be about me today, right? And so it's important that you challenge yourself and you ask yourself questions about why you're doing what you're doing, why you're showing up the way that you're showing up in this moment. You know, many times when it comes to codependency, there's an issue of reacting, overreacting, underreacting, and just reacting to whatever is going on versus being able to respond. And responding means that you take time to consider what is happening, to consider whether your intervening is actually a healing or good thing. Because sometimes our intervening can be enabling versus allowing this person to navigate their own stuff. I remember once I had an ex and I was going to the grocery store for them pretty much all the time for a few months because, you know, they were really busy starting their own business, getting some things going. And I know that, you know, grocery shopping isn't their favorite thing. And by not grocery shopping, they were just kind of eating like garbage stuff that really wasn't good for them, right? And so I thought I was doing a really good thing by going grocery shopping. And then that turned into whenever I would ask them, what do you want me to get you? They would, you know, kind of get frustrated with me and be like, well, I can't think about that right now. I'm trying to do some other stuff. And so I got them what they typically would get, you know, more healthy items that they would get. And they were upset that I wasn't getting them, you know, some of the stuff that really wasn't so great for them, that I wasn't getting them enough of that. Or if I did get them that, they would eat that up, but then they wouldn't eat any of the healthier things. And so it just was this whole thing. And I thought I was doing the right thing and I'm helping them and blah, blah, blah. And my therapist just asked me, she's like, what if you just stop? Like, this person is an adult, right? We're not talking about buying stuff for a kid. Like, they have a car, they have a license, they can go get the stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah. Well, what would happen if you just allowed them to get their own stuff? Since they don't like what you get them, they're telling you that. They're also telling you when you ask them what it is that they want, they're telling you they only want junk food and that they don't have time to tell you what other things they need because they're busy. Why don't you just let them take care of it themselves? Like, they'll be okay, right? And so I did. And it was painful because I had to watch it and I counted. I'm so horrible. But it was 8 weeks. 8 weeks before they went grocery shopping. Oh my God, it was 8 weeks. It was excruciating for me. 8 weeks before they went grocery shopping. And they just kept like eating out and eating trash and complaining about it and whatever. And I just was not going grocery shopping. I was just shopping for my crib, right? And so the only time they would eat some decent stuff is like if I came over and cooked or if they came to my house, but I was not trying to buy groceries. One of the things I had to realize is just how painful it was for me not to intervene. And I think that was probably the beginning of me recognizing how codependent I really was. And I don't think I knew that that was happening. As I'm sharing this story, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, yeah, that really was codependent straight up. You know, this person is telling me like they're not satisfied with either one of the things. And they also were upset with me for no longer shopping. And so that was the space in which my therapist jumped in saying they're not satisfied no matter what you do because this isn't about you. This is about them. And this is not about them for you. This is about you. You're making it about them. You are getting so upset because they won't tell you what they want from the store except for, you know, some And I won't name exactly what the items were because that might give the person away. But there were like these 3 or 4 things that they wanted, and they wouldn't, say anything else, like, bread or vegetables or, whatever. And so my therapist is like, no matter how much you keep going and going and going, they're not satisfied with whatever you do. You've done all the different things, and that's because you are so caught up in their reaction. And so as I'm navigating my healing journey right now of codependency, I'm starting to see how freaking wrapped up I was in what other people thought, or what I think they think, or what I think they're going to do, that it was near impossible for me to recognize that I was doing something codependent. I could not see that. Even thinking back on my sessions at the time, I heard what my therapist said, but I don't think I got it totally. And I'm starting to understand it a lot better now that I was so wrapped up in codependency, like I was just hyper focused on what was happening with this other person. And not just her, it was everybody. Most people in my life, I was so hyper focused on their reactions and what they needed and what they wanted and my contribution into their life that I spent very little time thinking about what Aziza needs, really. And to answer that question, what do I need? It was usually centered around other people. And so I want you to know that you have an opportunity to choose to center yourself more. That is a process that involves healing. And that healing process can be being part of groups, whether it is, a particular type of healing group, whether it's a church group, whether it is going to therapy, group therapy, individual therapy, meditation, healing rituals. There are a number of things that you can involve yourself in that can change the way that you think about you and how you show up in the world, and how you show up, most importantly, how you show up for you. And it's really important that you understand that when you're on this healing journey, yes, there are some painful pieces. That is straight up. But the whole thing isn't painful. It doesn't have to be. Choosing how you want to show up for yourself, choosing how you want to center yourself in a healthy way, setting up your day where you are more focused on addressing your own needs, your own wants, your own desires, than focusing outwardly towards other people. And I know that can be particularly difficult for folks like myself who are in the healing profession. So I am a professional coach. And so it can be difficult not to center myself in the needs of my clients. But I have to do that. Not only for myself, it is very important for my own healing, but it's also important for their healing. Because while I'm trying to take over their life and make sure that they do the right thing, and I know that's, hyperbole. I'm not trying to take over their life. But while I'm trying to make sure that they make the best choices for themselves and all of that, and I'm super focused on that, I'm really sending the message that I don't trust that they can do it. I hope you hear that. When you are hyper focused on making sure that somebody else lives their life a certain way, even if they're asking you to do that, you have to say no. You have to change your thinking about that. It's important that you invite new thinking in. I want to take the words have to out and say it's important for you to invite a new way of thinking and being in, because simultaneously, while you are doing all of those things, even if you are explicitly invited to do so, which is usually not the case, I'm going to put that out there. Usually we think we've been explicitly invited, and in fact, we have not. But there are times when we have been, so I want to leave room for that. But even if you are explicitly invited to do those things, I invite you to not. And I invite you to consider that by taking over or telling someone exactly how they ought to live their life and commenting on everything that they are doing and suggesting things, especially when not asked, is really sending the message that you don't believe they can do it without you. And that is damaging. It's damaging to you as the person who is doing it, because you are, especially if the outcome seems to be positive, and I say seems to be, and there's a reason for that. You hold on to that, but it seems to be positive. In reality, it is damaging you because you are continuing to do something that is not sustainable. That's the thing. Throwing away one piece of plastic into the ocean, not a big deal. Millions of tons of things get tossed into the ocean. Yeah, that's called not sustainable. And so you are that ocean. Every one-off thing you do, you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, I did this, I did that. But it's creating a pattern that can severely damage you and the relationships in your life. So I invite you to consider what it would look like, what it can look like in your healing to center yourself. That is vital. And in this healing journey, as I said, there are painful parts, but there are also parts that can be liberating and amazing. You get to choose that. You get to invite that. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you went for a walk in the rain? Not because you had to get from point A to point B, but you specifically were out there to walk in the rain. When was the last time you let rain hit your face or your hands? When was the last time you went for a walk in the snow, not because you had to clean your car, but because you just wanted to be out in the snow and let the snowflakes hit your hand or your face? When was the last time you stuck your tongue out and caught a snowflake on it? When was the last time you went for a walk in your neighborhood? Maybe you live in the city and there's not a lot of parks. When was the last time you just went and looked in the storefronts and just went for a nice walk around your neighborhood? When was the last time you went to the park? Maybe you have a botanical gardens in your city. Maybe you have a really nice park. Maybe there's a stretch of highway that you freaking love driving on whenever you have to get from point A to point B. But what if you just went for a ride for the hell of it? When was the last time, if ever, you've got on one of those scooters in the city and just rode around? Maybe you get on the train and there's a stretch of that area that the train travels that you would love to just take pictures on or just look at. How do you center you? How do you focus on you? How do you take good care of you? Just because it's you. Not around somebody else's schedule, not inviting other people necessarily, but inviting other people is okay as long as you can do it without caretaking for them. If that is difficult for you, if you're at the stage where it would be difficult to invite other people into the space, then do it on your own. What about scheduling a therapy session for yourself, or a massage, or scheduling time to speak with a coach, or joining that coaching group that you've heard so much about and you thought would be a great idea for you to be a part of? How do you center you? That's what's important. Giving as much energy to you as you have been giving to other people and what they're choosing and what they're doing and what's happening in their lives. You truly deserve to be happy. And although the healing journey has painful parts, it is much like when someone is injured and the doctor or nurse has to debride the wound. They have to take the particles and dirt, and maybe if they fell outside, they have to get the gravel and maybe a stick or two or twigs out of that wound, and they have to clean it out. That can be a painful process, but it can also be a relieving process where you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that this stuff is being taken out of my body, even though it hurts. You can choose what to focus on. When I was recovering from spine surgery, one of the things I was invited to do, and one of the things I had an opportunity to do, was when I was in excruciating pain, because after the spine surgery, I was paralyzed for a time. When the feeling came back in the lower extremities of my body, it was just awful. because my spine and my nerves had been assaulted, basically. The surgeon had left my back open for 4.5 hours doing this surgery. My nerves were retracted, and they're not used to that. They're hidden deep inside the body because, like, they don't want to be touched on. They don't want air to get to them and all of that. And so because the surgery took much longer than they anticipated, my nerves were exposed and retracted in that way. And so as they began to come back from this paralysis, it was excruciatingly painful. Even now, as I'm recounting this, I think I'm experiencing it very differently than I've ever had before. So you're invited to partake in this with me in this moment. But I remember after they had been traumatized, and that's really what that was. That was trauma being retracted for so many hours, and having doctors in and out of it, and sewing things and all of that. As the paralysis ended, pain flooded my body. I literally clawed the walls of my bedroom, screaming in agony. And I remember after, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, I realized that this wasn't going to let up, that it was going to take a while, that I needed to figure out another way to experience this. Like I decided in them, I was like, I got to figure something else out, because it was waves of excruciating pain. And I remember when I began to speak to my spine and speak to my nerves and say, I hear you. Thank you. I know you're doing your best. I know you're trying to make connections, and it is painful because you were cut off from making those connections during those 4 hours. I know. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for letting me know that you're doing your best to heal. That was an experience that changed my life. And I'm beginning to become emotional as I recount it, because I'm experiencing it very differently than even I did 6 months later. And when I shared it with other people, I remember experiencing so much of the pain as I talked about it. And now as I become emotional, I'm experiencing immense gratitude. I'm so grateful for that time in my life, because as painful as it was, it gave me what I am now using in my healing journey, a vital clue that you get to choose how you will experience this. And I invite you, through my experience, to know that that is the case for you as well. You get to choose. You get to invite your mind to experience things very differently than it ever had. I never would have imagined in all of my life that pain, that level of pain, that I would cry out in gratefulness. I remember my pastor had asked me what I would do if the surgery was not successful. I was like, oh, well, it has to be successful. It was not successful in terms of what the surgeon had wanted. I was supposed to leave that day. It was supposed to be a very minimally invasive thing, and it turned into a whole lot of other stuff. Several months of very painful recovery. And as I told you, paralysis, becoming completely unable to use my legs at all or feel them below the waist. And so I told her, I said, well, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to take my life. Like, I can't I can't take any more pain. I've been dealing with this for 7 years. I can't do this anymore. And so with that mindset and having that shift of going from, I'm going to have to end my life if this doesn't change, to choosing to experience it differently, was massive. I also want you to know, I'm not telling you a story of where once I decided that I was going to experience it differently, that it stopped hurting. That never happened. That didn't happen. I was in excruciating pain for over 8 hours. That pain did not let up. I literally passed out from the pain. So it didn't let up because I had decided I was going to experience it differently. I decided I was going to experience it differently, and it was still very, very painful. Eventually, the pain subsides. But if I had not begun to heal, if I had not had that surgery, I probably would have ended up being paralyzed anyway, but paralyzed beyond repair versus choosing to have that surgery and risking paralysis, which ultimately I had, but risking that because eventually my life did get better. Things did change, but it was not overnight. And it was not without it being hard fought. But it was all about me developing the mental and emotional fortitude to decide what the things in my life meant. And during that time, I had to center myself on me. I couldn't be worried about other people. I had some challenges with my mother at the time. I couldn't be worried about her and how she felt about some stuff. As far as I was concerned, it didn't matter. I was like, look, I'm trying to learn to walk again. I can't be bothered with all of this. And so what I invite you to do is to not have to have that type of experience to center yourself. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I ever would have learned how to center myself. I ended up moving right back into codependency later because I didn't have an awareness of what was going on with me. But now I do have an awareness, and I'm able to use that experience that I had before of what it was like to center myself and how healing and restorative that was, and how much of a benefit it has been to my life and how much of a blessing it has ultimately been to other people, even though I wasn't trying to bless them. I was just doing my best for me. Being able to recall that is helping me as I'm navigating codependency now to let me know that although there are going to be some painful things, and I'm saying this to you too, although there are going to be some painful experiences, I get to choose what those things mean to me, and I get to center myself in my healing, not in the pain, but in my healing, and knowing that that pain is part of a restorative process, just like debriding a wound is part of a restorative process. Sure, the doctor or nurse could just be inept and just wrap my arm up in a really nice looking bandage, but underneath I'm starting to die. Parts of my body are starting to die because they haven't been cleaned. Because my body is unable to heal itself with all of that foreign matter. And I invite you to see that the fear and the worry of other people's lives and other people's decisions and other people's anything is foreign matter. It does not belong in your mind rent free. It does not deserve to be there. If it paid rent, you should still evict it. Because it is damaging and it will never, ever result in you feeling whole. And it will also result in the other person being enabled rather than being healed. You get to be a beacon of light for others by stoking the flame within yourself. But if you don't do it for you, no one can benefit from your light. Instead, often we want to go and light fires under other people. And those fires go out because we have to always be there to stoke them because they don't know how to, and we don't let them because we're enabling them. What makes more sense is for you to start a fire within yourself, for you to stoke the flames within yourself. And anyone who is healthy enough can get up and walk over to your flame and be warmed. But you are not going to reach out and try to light something with them. You are going to be a beacon of hope for yourself first, and others who are willing to see it will be able to experience it. But you're not going to set out to make them see it. You're not going to move your fire closer to them so that they can feel it. You're not going to do any of that. You're going to focus on you. I am encouraging you in this moment as I am encouraging myself. that we must light the fire within ourselves and allow other people to do whatever they're going to do. If they are going to be encouraged by the fire and come closer and be a healthy contribution to it rather than trying to put water on it. Whether people are going to walk away from it because it's too hot or it's too bright or there are too many other people standing around. Let people do whatever they're going to do. It isn't about them. It's about you. And for me, it's about me. This podcast isn't about you. This podcast is about me fulfilling my life's purpose. And if others benefit from it, ashe. And if they do not, or they don't want to, or whatever, that's okay too. Even when that doesn't feel okay, even when I lose a subscriber and feel away, I get to choose what that means for me. I get to become aware that I am tying my worthiness to a particular outcome that involves something I cannot control. And then I get an opportunity to see that differently. And so do you. All right, y'all. You know how we do this. Remember, you are loved, loving, lovable, dope, amazing, creative, fun, beautiful, and absolutely worthy. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, no matter what you think, no matter what anyone has even said about you, you deserve love. You are love. Invite love, light, and awesomeness into your life and be that in every moment you can. It's your girl, Ziza B, and I'll holla. Peace.